Welcome to the laws of Shabbat. This will be part 30. Today's topic, Rabbinical prohibitions. Rav David Yosef Shlita in his Sefer Halacha Berurah is going to speak about if a person went ahead and he did on Shabbat something which was not allowed to be done by the rabbis. He's going to give us a few cases. Are you allowed to go ahead and benefit from what you did on Shabbat itself? So Rav David Yosef Shlita opens up and he begins. Mi she'avar b'Shabbat b'shogig al devarim she'asru chacham la'asotam b'Shabbat. If someone transgressed on Shabbat by accident, very important point, all this that we're about to learn, everything if you actually did it by accident, not if you did it intentionally. Because we'll see if you did it intentional, the halachot are completely different. So therefore, Mi shavar b'Shabbat b'shogeg, if someone transgressed on Shabbat by accident, al devarim she'asru chachamim la'asotam b'Shabbat, on things that the rabbis forbade one to do them on Shabbat, mutar lo lishtamesh v'lehinot mema she'asa afilu b'Shabbat atzma. You are allowed to go ahead and use and benefit from what you did even on Shabbat itself. And for sure, shemutar lachem is permissible for other people, lishtamesh v'lehinot me'oto davar, to use and benefit from that thing, afilu b'Shabbat atzma, even on Shabbat itself. So comes Rav David Yosef Shlita and he tells us like this: if a person went ahead and he transgressed a rabbinical prohibition, something the rabbi said you're not allowed to do on Shabbat, and he went ahead and he did do it on Shabbat by accident, we're going to allow him to benefit from it and anyone other than him. Now Rav David Yosef is going to give us a few examples. V'lachein, and therefore, mi sheta'av v'hifrish trumot u'mesarot b'Shabbat, if somebody made a mistake and he separated truma and ma'aser on Shabbat, or he made a mistake and he separated chala on Shabbat, in all of these cases we're going to tell you are allowed to go ahead and benefit from the item. Now, before we do continue, let's just see their definition. I wrote it down over here on the bottom. Trumot. What are trumot? Again, all these things are donations. That if a person used to own a field, after he would harvest his field, he would have to give a donation to the Kohen. So trumot are heave offerings, portions of produce given by a Jewish farmer to a Kohen. It must be separated from the crop before eating. It becomes holy and may be eaten only by Kohanim in purity. Now, what happens if you had a Jewish farmer? This really applies in Eretz Yisrael, not outside of the land of Israel. You had a Jewish farmer, he went ahead on Shabbat itself. He went and he separated the truma and he gave it to a Kohen. Because if he doesn't separate, he's not allowed to eat it, because it's tevel. The question is, what happens if he went ahead and he did do it? Can he go ahead and now eat from the produce from which he separated the truma on Shabbat? The answer is yes. Why? Because it's only a rabbinic prohibition that one is not allowed to separate truma on Shabbat. Similarly, when it comes to ma'aserot, which is the 10% that is given to a Levi, after truma is taken, a tenth of what remains is given to a Levi. Actually, we'll say right here. There are a few kinds of Ma'aser Rishon, the 10% that has to be given. So there is a Ma'aser Rishon, the first 10% is given to a Levi. Ma'aser Sheni, the second 10% is given in years 1, 2, 4, 5 of the Shemitah cycle, right? The 7-year cycle. In the 7-year cycle, he has to give truma, and then he has to give Ma'aser Rishon, Ma'aser Sheni. We're going to also see right now Ma'aser Oni. There's a very big difference when he's giving these Ma'aser, when he's giving these 10%. If it's in the 7-year cycle and it's in the first, second, fourth, and fifth year, that means he's going to give the Truma as usual to the Kohen. Then he's going to give the Ma'aser Rishon, he's going to give 10% to the Levi. Afterwards, Rabotai, he has to also give Ma'aser Sheni. But, here's the catch. Let's say if this guy harvested it on the first year, so he has to give Ma'aser Sheni, which is actually given to him. He takes the 10% and he has to go and he has to eat it in Yerushalayim. If he can't take the whole produce, he can't take all the produce with him because it's too much, no problem. He's going to redeem it onto the money, and then he's going to take the money to Yerushalayim. He's going to purchase produce over there, and then he's going to eat it. But the Ma'aser Sheni really goes to him. But the secret is, Ma'aser Sheni, it has to be eaten in Yerushalayim. Now, there's another Ma'aser, which is called Ma'aser Oni, which is given to the poor. Now, this belongs to them, which is given in years 3 and 6. For example, we saw over here that when it comes to Ma'aser Sheni, on the first, second, fourth, fifth year, he takes it himself. But what happens right now if on the third year he harvested the crops? He gave the Truma to the Kohen. Then he gave Ma'aser Rishon to the Levi. Now he looks, what year am I in from the 7-year cycle? What year am I in? Third year. So what am I supposed to give? Am I supposed to give Ma'aser Sheni? Or am I supposed to give Ma'aser Oni? He has to give Ma'aser Oni. What about Ma'aser Sheni? No, he doesn't have to do that. It's not applicable. Ma'aser Sheni is not applicable in year 3 and in year 6. So all he's going to do, he's going to go there and he's going to give Ma'aser Oni, which is given to the poor person. So we see over here, Rabotai, by the way, we're just learning about Ma'aserot, but there's something that's called Trumot Ma'aser. So basically it works like this. After the farmer gives a percentage to the Kohen, I think it's around 1 or 2%. I think it's more likely like 2%. He gives it to the Kohen. Afterwards, the farmer has to give 10% to the Levi, which is called Ma'aser Rishon. After the Ma'aser Rishon is given, the Levi himself has to give what's called Trumat Ma'aser. He has to also give a 10% of what he just received. He has to give it as the donation back to the Kohen. So if he received 10%, he has to give 10% from what he received, which is 1%. So now he has to go and he has to give 1% back to the Kohen. So that's what we call it. Truma, Ma'aser Rishon. Then you have the Trumot Ma'aser, which the Levi gives back to the Kohen. Now you have Ma'aser Sheni, what we were speaking about. The second 10%, when does the person have to give it? It depends on the 7-year cycle, on the Shemitah cycle. What year am I in? If I am in year 1, 2, 4, and 5, then we're going to tell you, you have to give Ma'aser Sheni. Take the 10% of produce for yourself, take it up to Yerushalayim and eat it in Yerushalayim. You can do that, redeem it onto money, take the money and then go ahead and buy produce in Yerushalayim and eat the produce there. However, what happens if it's the year 3 or year 6? When over there you're not going to give Ma'aser Sheni. Over there you have to give Ma'aser Oni, the 10% which belongs to the poor people. Okay, so that's how it works, Rabotai. So usually what comes out over here, let me do something. So if let's say 2% goes to the Kohen, 10% goes to the Levi, and depending on the year, 10% either will go to himself or either it's going to go to the poor person. So you're looking over here, Rabotai, that any given year, the farmer has to give, if I'm looking at 2% that the Kohen gets, 10% that a Levi gets, and then 10% either himself or the poor person gets, but he's never giving Ma'aser Sheni and Ma'aser Oni. That he's never doing. He's never giving in 1 year 20%, 10 for himself and then 10 for the poor person. No, it's always either or, depending on the year. So therefore it comes out that he's giving in every single year, he's giving 22% of his produce away. After he gave the 22% of his produce away, then he's allowed to go ahead and he's allowed to eat his produce. So that's what the Rav David Yosef Shita was telling us right over here. Let me just get this back. We're going to come back. I have to define one more thing, but I just want to show you something. That's what he said over here. V'lachen, and therefore, Mi sheta'av v'hifrish trumot u'ma'asarot b'Shabbat. If somebody made a mistake and he separated truma and ma'aser on Shabbat, like I just explained, either it's going to be Maser Rishon, Maser Sheni, or even Maser Oni. Doesn't matter. Are you allowed to go now and eat from that food, from that produce? Yes, you are. As long as that was done by accident. Now, what does it mean accident? So in Masech Shabbat, they discuss what does it mean accident. How can you do by accident? You don't know. So so there's two things. Either I knew that I knew that you're not allowed to separate Truma and Ma'aser. I knew that. But I forgot that today is Shabbat. So as I was giving one time in class at Masech Shabbat, somebody says, Rabbi, how can you forget that today is Shabbat? It's impossible. I said, tell me, it never happened to you. You wake up in the middle of the night, or you're rushing into somewhere and you walk into the bathroom and you just turn on it's Shabbat. No, why do you turn it on? Because you forget. Your mind works by rote, is by habit. So you really forgot. For that second, you forgot it's Shabbat. Why'd you turn it on? If you knew it's Shabbat, you would not turn it on. So it happens at a time when we do forget, or very classical example, if a person has, those alarm clocks, snooze button. You're sleeping, you hear the alarm go off. If you don't program the night before that it's Shabbat, you can come and press the alarm clock off and make it go off on snooze. So therefore, it does happen. So one way a person can do it by accident is by forgetting that today's Shabbat, thinking it's a Friday or a Sunday or any other day of the week. Another way you could make a mistake by knowing that today is Shabbat. But Rabotai, how many people know that this halakha is not allowed? That's the real question, you understand? So really, we are aware today that Shabbat is Shabbat. But how many halachot are we not aware of? And that, Rabotai, is the problem. Okay. So therefore we're saying right over here, you are allowed to go ahead and eat from that produce. Or we said, Shabbat. Now, Rabotai, this is a very far-fetched case, but I'm going to have to say it. What is challah, right? Everybody, when we go, we buy challah, right? We say challah. No, it's not challah, Rabotai, it's bread. So why do we call it challah? Now, I don't think a lot of people understand the definition of challah. So, try to put it to you. I don't know if you guys ever did dough, but whenever your wife makes dough, right, she takes flour, she takes water, right, she mixes the dough together, she mixes the flour and the water together to make a dough. Once she has it in the stage of dough after it rises, what does she do? She has to say the bracha of Hafrashat Challah. She has to separate a piece from the dough. Either she's going to wrap it in foil and put it in the garbage, or either she's going to burn it. Now, by her removing, let's say that this is the challah, not the challah, let's say that this is the dough. By her removing, let's say she's removing, say this is the piece of dough that she's removing from the dough. This Rabotai, this small piece, is called challah. That's what's called challah. What we call today the bread is really lechem. We call it challah, but it's really lechem. It's not challah. We call it challah because you take away from it the piece. That piece is called challah. That's why it's called chafrashat challah. You take away a piece of the challah. So Rabotai, so what is a chafrashat challah? Separating the dough portion. When making bread, one must separate a small piece of dough and set it aside as a gift to the Kohen called challah. Today, since Kohanim are not ritually pure, we still separate it but burn it instead of giving it to them. So that's why when we saw over here on top, Therefore, this is what we saw over here on top. Where did it go? V'lachein. Right here. Right? V'hifrish chala b'Shabbat. If a person went ahead and he separated chala on Shabbat, we're going to tell you you're allowed to go ahead and eat from that bread on Shabbat. Now, Rabotai, you have to understand, it's almost a very far-fetched to say over here, but let's say if a person went ahead and he did do it, you would be allowed to go ahead and eat from that bread on Shabbat. Again, very simple. Either the person forgot that today is Shabbat, or either the person knew that today is Shabbat, but they did not know that they're not allowed to separate the piece of dough from the whole big piece of dough. Okay. Rabbi, so this is the bottom line. Again, let's just do this one piece. So this clarifies the whole thing, what we were speaking about. V'lachen, and therefore, if somebody made a mistake and he separated Truma and Maaser on Shabbat itself by accident, or he made a mistake and he separated Challah b'Shabbat, we're going to tell you are allowed to benefit from that on Shabbat. So you guys are understanding what it means, rabbinical prohibitions. Now, these things the rabbis forbade you to do. Even though it was allowed to be done from the Torah, the rabbis, they make decrees. So they made a decree. So this particular case, or these particular cases where the rabbis forbade us, you're not allowed to do it. But if you did do it, and it was an accident, we're going to allow you to go ahead and benefit and use what you did. Now, another case. V'chen, and so too. Again, Rabotai, it's a far-fetched case, but in Israel they do this. I don't know how many people do it over here, but v'chen, and therefore, mi sheta'a'u b'shal b'Shabbat b'shogig b'toldat ha'chamam. If somebody made a mistake and he went ahead and he cooked by accident on Shabbat through a derivative of the sun. What does that mean? What does it mean, Toda? Toda literally means like secondary or children, but it doesn't make sense. Let me give you the definition over here. Okay, so literally when you say told, it's like a child, like a secondary to something. So told hakama, derivatives of the sun's heat. For example, things heated by the sun, such as water or metal warmed by the sunlight. Using that heat to cook on Shabbat is forbidden by rabbinical law, not by Torah law, because we know you're not allowed to cook through fire. But what happens if I want to use the sun? What happens if I want to use the sun? Doesn't it? No, it says ish, you can't use fire. Sun, Rabotai, the Chacham said it's asur. Using that heat to cook on Shabbat is forbidden by rabbinical law and not by Torah law, because it's indirect heat from the sun. So therefore, Rabotai, remember this, Rabotai. When we're going to say Toldot HaChama, is derivatives of the sun's heat. So Rav David Yosef Shlita is going to give us over here a case. What happens if a person went in and he used the sun to cook water and then he put, let's say, a piece of chicken inside, a raw piece of meat or chicken. There we go, look. And so too, if somebody made a mistake, Shabbat, and he cooked on Shabbat, by accident, betoldot chama, with the derivatives of the sun. How? Kigon, for example, shenatan davar she'einu muvashal letoch ma'im chamim. He took something which is not cooked, and he placed it into hot boiling water. Now, let's say it was a raw meat or raw chicken. But how was this water boiled? Shenitchamemu machmat hashemesh. It was heated or boiled through the sun. A person took out, and by the way, Rabotai, you guys, the reason why I say all this applies in Israel, actually, no, maybe over here in America also. You know we have this, I forgot what you call these things that you put on top of the roof for the electricity. I forgot these things. Okay, doesn't make a difference, but I don't know if you guys know, in the roof they start putting these, I forgot what it's called, they put these things so where the sun hits and you get your electricity. in Israel, my sister-in-law is in Israel, my wife's sister, and one of the hardest things for them is Baruch Hashem, when you have a lot of children, they do have a lot of children also. When you have a lot of children, the water gets heated up through the sun. So it's a very different halachot for them versus us. Our water gets heated up through fire, mamish, a boiler. By them, a lot of old buildings, they have these, their water gets heated up through the sun. And now what's the problem? On Erev Shabbat, when you want to take a shower, you only have a limited amount of water that you could use. So once that water is used up, now you're running into cold water. So this really, Rabbotah, all these things apply in Israel. And by the way, people do. I mean, you could also do it here. But all these halachot really are mainly for people who live in Israel. So he says like this, Rabbotah, let's say a person with a head, he took a pot of cold water and he put it outside. And the sun was beaming into it. Now he sees that the water is boiling. He took a piece of meat or a piece of chicken raw and he put it inside and he cooked it or he boiled it. You're not allowed to do it. The question is, are you allowed to eat that food on Shabbat? Now remember, remind you, if this was on Shabbat, in your house, on the stovetop, on the fire, you wouldn't be allowed to eat it. He said, Rabotai, if it's by accident you have to bring a chatat, a sin offering. If you knew it and you did it intentionally, Rabotai chayv karet. So we have to understand, it's not a joke. But over here we're going to tell you, the rabbi said you can't, it doesn't say in the Torah you can use the heat of the sun. The rabbi said you cannot use the heat of the sun. Fine. You can't. The Chachamim, they made that prohibition. But if you went there and you did use it, we're going to allow you to eat that food. That's what it says over here. Mutar oto davar shenitbashal b'Shabbat ben lo ben la'acher v'afilu b'Shabbat atzmam. It's permissible for him, that what he cooked on Shabbat, or for other people, even on Shabbat itself. So comes Rav David Yosef and he tells us, if somebody made a mistake and he cooked on Shabbat through the derivatives of the sun, for example, he boiled water through the sun, then he cooked something inside that water, he's allowed to go ahead and eat it, he or anyone else, even on Shabbat itself. Now, Rabotai, this is what I wanted to point out in the beginning of the class. V'chol ze eina ela ki she'asa b'Shabbat isur b'shogeg. Isur d'Rabbanan b'shogeg. Everything that we just learned above, this whole halacha that we learned above, right, with the truma, maaser, chavrashat chala, toldat hachama, all this that we just learned above, that's only if you did all these prohibitions of the rabbis, only if you did it by accident. Aval im asa b'meizid. But if you did it intention, knowing that today is Shabbat, knowing that that is not allowed to be done, asur lishtamesh ulehenot memash asa b'Shabbat atzma. It is prohibited for you to use and benefit from that thing you did, even on Shabbat itself, Rabotai. You're not allowed to use it, right? Ben oto she'asa ben acherim. You can't use it, and other people also cannot use it. V'rak achar Shabbat mutar l'shamesh ulehenot memash she'asa. Only after Shabbat you're allowed to go ahead and you're allowed to use and benefit from what you did on Shabbat. Ben oto she'asa ken be'atzmo ben acherim. Whether that person, he himself did it, or for other people, they're allowed to benefit after Shabbat. So let's see this one more time, Rabotai. By the way, I just do want to show you something. I just want to show you why it's so important to try to learn Hebrew. You know, I was, I teach a certain person, and his son also comes to my class, and he also learns with me. And they're in their teens. So I tell him, read Rashi. He says, I can't read Rashi. So you can't read Rashi? Again, the kids are in yeshiva. I said, why can't you read Rashi? He said, because I don't know the letters of Rashi. So how do you want to learn Gemara? Oh, my Rebbe tells me. It doesn't work like that. Rabotai, it doesn't work like that. You have to understand, you have to make a schedule. You have to make sure. A lot of parents think they send their children to the best yeshivas, which is the top of the line yeshiva. And yeah, I agree with them. My kids also blame hard when they go to yeshiva, right? They come back home and they want to learn or they want to ask me a question. My first question to them is, did you do the Rashi? When they ask me a question, I said, did you do the Rashi in that piece? So they said, no, the Rebbe told me. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. You have to first know how to learn Rashi. You have to first know how to read Rashi. You have to know Rashi letters. Until they don't know that, there's nothing more to speak about. So yeah, so I will put my kids on, on schedule where, not while they're doing their homework. No, they have a schedule where each one must sit and try to do a little bit of Rashi without me. I could be here. I'm here to help, but I need them to try by themselves. Now I'll just show you how. Let me just show you some books. I just want to show you because remember, Rabotai, you guys can also make sure you educate your children. Don't think just because your kids go to yeshiva that they're teaching them all these things. They're probably not. Yeah, they're teaching them Gemara, Halakha. But Rabotai, if they don't know Rashi, they're not going to be able to know Tosfot. If they don't know Tosfot, they're not going to be able to know Rishonim, Achronim. How do you expect them to learn tomorrow, Shulchan Aruch, and all of these things? It's almost impossible. So what do I make my kids do? So basically, I'll show you a few dictionaries. I make them actually look it up. Does it take time? Yes, it takes time. I'm not expecting a lot from them, but I want them to do, one line of Rashi, a few words, whatever it is. I need them to put in time. Now I'll show you that there's this dictionary. It's called the Jastrow, Marcus Jastrow. A lot of people are against this dictionary, whatever it is, but it's very useful. It gives you not a lot of nice words inside, which is very important to use. Now that's another one you could have is Aramaic, Hebrew, English, which is very, very nice also. So what it does is, first it's going to tell you in Aramaic, and then it's going to tell you in Hebrew, and then it's going to tell you the English. So this way, what I do try to advise my kids when they're learning with the Hebrew, with the Aramaic, to always try to translate it also into Hebrew, because it gives you the Hebrew. So it makes it easier for you to understand. And then you have another one. You have this one. It's a very nice one. The Practical Talmud Dictionary right over here. Very, very important, Rabotai. Same thing, Rabotai. Same thing. But again, you have to be able to give your children the resources. Now, why am I saying all this? Look at the difference what we just did. We just spoke about Truma, Maser, Chafrashat Chala, and Toldat Chama. All those things are 4 words in Hebrew, but look how much you have to know in English. That's why it's always better to try to learn things in Hebrew. This is the reason why we have these words on the screen so you guys can see it and pick up and learn like that. So just to conclude, when I was with his father and his son, I said, listen, I don't want him don't come to learn with me. Don't try to learn Gemara. Don't try to do that Fiomi. You have to sit and learn and practice the word, learn how to read it, and try to do 1 or 2 words every single day. How's that going to help me? Just do it. You'll see, Rabotai, if it's even, let's say, 1 word every single day, 1 word, there's 365 days, which is not going to be 1 word, it's going to be more than 1 word. And a lot of words are repetition. They're always repeating themselves. I told the father, I said, give your boy 6 months. Come back to me and tell me if he's not learning well or not. But he must do it. He must do it. So why am I telling you this? Also us. You got to be very, very careful. I don't care what yeshiva your children go to. If they come home and they tell you a piece of Gemara, or they tell you a piece of Halakha, and you ask them, where is it written, where is it found? And they're going to tell you, my Rebbe said so. Big zero, Rabotai. You big zero, a very big problem. You're wasting your money. I'm happy the Rebbe said it to them. Tomorrow the Rebbe is not going to be there with them. They have to know exactly where it's written, which Gemara, which page, which line. They have to know. Everything has to be seen inside Rabotai. If you want to make sure your kids go in the ways of Torah, let them see with their eyes everything that's inside written in our Torah. There's too many opinions, Rabotai. Too many people come up with stories. And Rabotai, don't lose your children. Don't think just because they go to yeshiva, they're going to come out religious. No. You have to make sure you have to be on top of it, that your children, outside of their school, outside of their homework, they're also sitting and practicing how to learn Torah. You as a father cannot do it, no big deal. Get yourself a Talmud Chacham. It's going to cost you. Somebody called me he wanted to do tutoring. He says, Rabbi, I'll pay you $100 for 30 minutes. I said, I don't want you $100, not about the $100. I would have done it for free. I don't have the time. I sent him somebody else for $100. He was teaching him. Rabotai, 45 minutes for $100. Whatever it is, you get the Talmidei Chachamim to teach your children Torah. If they're sitting and learn Torah, I'm telling you right now, your dividends in the next world is going to be great. Also in this world, but Rabotai, I'm telling you, after, because right now you can see with your own eyes. You're going to see it, Rabotai. You'll see. It's going to give you so much nachas, seeing your children sitting and learning Torah instead of chas v'shalom. I don't even want to say, but instead of being in the wrong places. They're in the base measures, they're sitting, learning Torah. Good boys, good husbands, good fathers, good grandfathers. The older they become, Rabotai, the wiser they're going to become. But like this, what are they going to, my Rebbe said, or he said, and she said, and that said, and what said? Okay, go ask ChatGPT, go ask Google, ask Siri, they'll tell you the same thing. We need to be able to amal b'Torah. In any event, Rabotai, I went off the tangent, but I just wanted to bring out over here a very important point. Look at the difference when you say Truma, Maser, Chavrashat Chala, and Tolda Chachama. In Hebrew, it's bam, it's down, cold, packed cold. But in English, you got to go and you got to define each one. It makes it that much harder. In any event. All this, what we just spoke about, anytime you do a rabbinical prohibition on Shabbat, that's only if you did it by accident. We're going to tell you you're allowed to go ahead and you're allowed to benefit from it on Shabbat, you or anyone else. Aval, however, but if you did it intentionally, knowingly, asur, you're not allowed to, Rabotai, it's forbidden. You're not allowed to use and benefit from what you did on Shabbat itself, whether the person himself who did the act or whether other people that did not do the act, nobody's allowed to go and benefit from it. Varak achra Shabbat mutar, and only after Shabbat it's going to be permissible to benefit and use from what you did on Shabbat. Ben oto shasaken be'atzmo ben acherim. Whether the person, he himself who did the act, or whether other people that did not do it, all of them are going to be allowed to use it after Shabbat if you went ahead and you did it intentionally. Now, Rabotai, this next halacha, very important halacha. This is very practical. Actually, this applies, you get this question a lot. I don't know if you guys get it, but I get it. A person, his wife bought new dishes, right? A lot of times, especially when you have guests, the woman, they love, they're making the table beautiful. The Gemara says that woman, she has an eye for guests. She knows which guests are coming. Women are on top of these things. Not like men. Men are not, they don't have that intuition like women do. Women know their guests very well. So they go and she bought new plates, new cups, fork, whatever, to make it nice. Okay. You find out she didn't take it to the mikvah. On Shabbat, what do you do? On Shabbat, what do you do? You have a mikvah next door. You could go inside, open it, mikvah. What do you do? He says like this. V'im hitbil b'Shabbat. Now we'll see over here the halacha and we'll see what we're supposed to do. Okay, let me just read the whole thing. V'im hitbil b'Shabbat b'mikvah tohara kelim chadashim sheikana min hagoy. If you went there and you dipped on Shabbat into a pure mikvah, meaning a mikvah which holds 40 se'ah of water, it's a measurement. If you went there and you dipped inside over there brand new utensils which you bought from a non-Jew, because the only utensils you have to go ahead and dip is utensils made by a non-Jew, but if it's utensils made by a Jew, you don't have to dip it. Mutar lishtamesh bahem b'Shabbat, you're allowed to use those utensils on Shabbat. Av leminag ha'ashkanazim, even according to the custom of the Ashkenazim, ha'machmirim, that are stringent, shelo ladbil kelim chadashim b'Shabbat, that they are stringent not to dip new utensils on Shabbat. Even if they did it intentionally, you're allowed to go ahead and benefit from those utensils. Aval, Rabotai. However, listen to this. Leminhaga Sephardim, according to the custom of the Sephardim, I want to read this for you. Mutar mi'ikar hadin ladbil kelim chadashim be'mikvah b'Shabbat. According to the letter of the law, we Sephardim are allowed to go ahead and dip brand new utensils into the mikvah on Shabbat. It's not a problem at all. Nevertheless, comes Rav David and he says, Av leminag Sephardim. Here we go. So this is going to be the thing that's going to decide what you should do on Shabbat or not. Remember, according to the letter of the law, we are allowed to dip utensils, brand new utensils on Shabbat into the mikvah. We're allowed to do it. Ashkenazim, they're stringent. So therefore they don't do so. If a person went and he did it even on Shabbat intentionally, it's not a problem because really you're allowed to do it. They're just stringent. But even according, nevertheless, even according to the custom of the Sephardim, listen to this carefully. If it's possible, let's say you have a housemaid, excuse me, or let's say you have a waiter, a goyish waiter. If it's possible, try to go ahead and give this utensil. Say all this what you have over here. All this is it's a present to you. And afterwards, and afterwards, go back and borrow it from there. Borrow it from them. And you're allowed to use them on Shabbat because they belong to the non-Jew. So that's one of the Rabotai. There's another way to come out. A lot of times a person, he goes, I don't know, they go on vacation, right? They go on vacation and they buy new pots. Happens a lot of times. You try to get a house which is at least, kosher standards. So now they try to buy their own pots. The problem is, if you have an ocean, you could definitely go and dip it into the ocean. It's not a problem. Now, sometimes people, there's no mikveh. The place that they go, there's no mikveh. I don't know why they would go there, but let's say there's no mikveh. What do you do? You want to use it? What do you do? This is the eitzah. This is the advice. You try to give it to a non-Jew. There's for sure non-Jews over there working. Say, look, this is a present for you. After he takes it, he acquires it, it's his. Say, now can I borrow it? That's the finish. Once you say, you're borrowing his utensil, you're not obligated to dip the utensils of a non-Jew. And then you're allowed to use it. Okay? And that's how you're going to use it. That's he says, if it's possible that if you could give it to the goy as a present instead of going to the mikvah on Shabbat, do it that way. And afterwards, Rabotai, ask him to give it back to you so you can borrow it. And then you're allowed to go ahead and use it on Shabbat.